Toji's not used to being right, and weirdly, he got used to that. It was almost easier that way, living with zero expectations, just a guy without a name or a purpose. A slate wiped with a half-hearted attempt to be clean that instead left him riddled with scuffs and smudges, and a mottled array of faded colors. He was fine with it, carrying out meaningless carnage with a mechanicality more appropriate for a puppet on a string than for a human being. But the fact that his hunch about having a family was right, well, that scares him. Even if that family wants nothing to do with him, Toji can't even blame her. What kid would want a parent that disappeared on them that forgot they ever existed? Because fuck, does he even want a kid in his life? He has no idea how to make himself happy, let alone a child. It goes without saying that Toji would make a shitty parent. And every time he thinks of the way Maki just glared at him, that reminder blares in his mind like a fire alarm, warning him that he's nothing but a jumbled mess of red flags. It's not fair to her, but he can't help it. Toji never claimed to be a good person anyways. He can't bring himself to regret his offer, but there are so many uncertainties that it makes his world glitch and swaddles his brain in a blanket of cotton. But fuck it. He made a promise. He gave her his word, and even though his word is fucking worthless, he'll be damned if he doesn't at least try. And so he goes to the old gray building 3 days later, because he frickin' said so. For the first time in as much of his life as he can remember, Toji's not just late, he's early. He's almost a whole hour early, and Maki's already here. Because of course she is. She's curled up outside the main door with her knees huddled to her chest, eyes glazed over and unseeing as if she's staring through the pavement rather than at it. The faintest tinge of purple lies in half-moons beneath her eyes, the way that might look as if she hardly gotten any sleep the night before. It's barely even noticeable, but Toji is nothing if not observant. It might also help that he saw the same exact look on his own face when he glanced in the mirror this morning. Maybe she was nervous? Nah, probably not. Even after just one conversation, Toji's pretty sure that emotion isn't in her limited range. He's nervous, though. Not that he'd admit it. It creeps up in the form of a chill that has nothing to do with the biting morning wind that nips at his face, the kind he couldn't warm up no matter how many of his pathetically thin blankets he piled on top of himself last night. It makes every hair on his body stand at attention and spreads his senses a million and none directions, and he's painfully hyper-aware that his actions today could have drastic and irreversible consequences. If he can't live up to his lofty claims and flashy maneuvers from the day at the weapon shop, she might storm out and never look back, and that'd be it. He can't fuck this up, not again, not like he does with everything else. He's already lost her once. Toji can barely live with himself as is, and he's not sure if he can manage it at all if he made the same mistake this time around. Though Maki doesn't move, he can tell she's noticed him. She doesn't bother looking up until he's right at her feet, and when she does, it's with a smirk entirely too soft than he was expecting, and it knocks the wind out of his chest just long enough for her to speak first. "You're early," she says flatly, and with a amused lilt that her voice makes her seem like herself again. Toji flaps a hand ungracefully. Yeah, don't mention it. There's no way she isn't going to hold this over his head. The hell are you waiting outside in the cold for? You need an invitation from the Rat King to the royal ball he's hosting in his abandoned palace? Just making sure it was the right place, she replied in a way that was almost sound defensive if Toji didn't know better. Okay, so maybe she is nervous, but she seems about as ready to admit that as he is. Besides, it's probably for entirely different reasons than his. Well, he sure as hell doesn't know how to comfort nerves, but he does know how to diffuse them. When she still doesn't get up, Toji strolls up to the door theatrically and holds it open with a bow. "After you, princess," he taunts. That gets a reaction out of her. She marches past him and goes to stomp on his foot, but he flicks it away at the last second with an impish grin. Toji kicks away a stray brick that falls from the ceiling when he slams the door behind them. There's a cluster of low-grade curses scuttling around in the corner of the room, bouncing up and down like a slinky on a staircase. Maki's eyes flicker back and forth, as if she's trying very hard not to look at something. Huh? Toji chucks a rock at them and they split apart like mice, darting off in a starburst of directions and Maki gasps, far too loud and far too honest for her to even have a chance to suppress her reaction, and her jaw drops to the floor. Wait, you could see those? Toji's eyebrows shoot through the ceiling. Physics and biology be damned. Could you? Immediately, Maki's hands fly to her glasses. She grips the red-wired rims with her tiny hands with an iron strength, almost as if she's expecting him to wrench them off her face in the next 2 seconds. What the hell? My glasses help me, she explains. She narrows her eyes in the panther-like slits, but Toji doesn't miss the flash of panic that streaks across her face. Wait, are you a sorcerer? Toji can barely dignify that question with a response. Do I look like a sorcerer, kid? I don't know, she replies. Her face isn't changing. I know sorcerers with way worse attitudes than you. Christ, this again, you don't even know me. She gives him the exact same response she did the first time. Yeah, exactly. This isn't going well. Not that Toji's a big fan of sorcerers either. He only had to work with a few, and beat up a couple others, in the past year and a half, but they'd have him so brain dead after interacting with them for more than 5 minutes that he'd almost wanted to forget who he was. Again. And all that is before taking the white-haired brat into account. Toji barely knows a thing about him, but he's pretty sure he hates his guts. At least Yuki is tolerable. Nah, I ain't a sorcerer, Toji clarifies. Why, training to be one or something? Yes, she replies, with resolution strong enough to shove mountains in dense steel. I am. Huh. Is all Toji can respond to that. Man, he's really wishing he could tell him more about the Jujutsu world right about now. That who your family is? Bunch of hot-shot sorcerers? What's your term again? Inherent technique. Innate technique, she corrects with the tiniest hint of a grin. Oh, come on, that was close enough. And her eyes plummet to the floor, and her lips press together so tightly they start to tremble. I don't have one. Blinking. Oh, you don't? Maki scowls. Yeah, I don't. Got a problem with that? She folds her arms across her chest, gaze still glued to the ground. So if you're gonna try and teach me how to channel my cursed energy, it's not gonna work. I barely have any. Barely have any? Toji smirks. I don't have any at all. Maki whips her head back towards him so abruptly that her own hair smacks in her face, expression flashing with something almost like hope. Well shit, maybe this is going well. You don't? She stammers. None at all. And you can still what? Make short work of sorcerer's sorry ass so fast it makes her head spin? Toji snorts. Yep. For a single brief moment, he could almost swear her eyes twinkle with awe, the same way a child might stare at a superhero. Toji's voice snags in his throat, so he loudly clears it and rustles his hair since it's sure it'll piss her off, because, he can't really handle that way she's looking at him right now. Like he might actually be something, be someone. He doesn't have nearly enough self-worth to be able to process that, especially coming from, well, his own kid. Damn, it's kind of sad. Fortunately, Toji's distraction works, and Maki indignantly tries to de-rustle her hair as Toji strolls to the center of the room, stretching out the muscles in his back. The mirror has gotten smudged again, from when he half-assedly wiped it down the last time he came here to train, which was a while ago, he thinks. He's not exactly great at timekeeping, but keeping track what day of the week it is. Thursday, maybe? Whatever. Maki pads after him. From the pocket in her skirt, she withdraws the knife he recommended her. Oh hey, she actually kept it. And presents it to him like an actual offering. I brought this, she announces. Ooh, for me? How pretty, he teases. I'll go put it in the corner, because we're not touching that thing today. Maki looks positively incensed. What? I thought you said you were going to teach me how to use it. I am, Toji confirms. We got a hell of a lot of groundwork to do before you're ready to pick that thing up again. A house built on weak foundations is doomed to topple over in an earthquake, you know? Maki rolls her eyes, but listens anyway, plunking down the knife with a dull clink. That analogy was stupid, she deadpans. You're stupid, he finds himself shooting back before he can even stop himself. Holy shit, is he fucking 5? But Maki barks out a single laugh, and without missing the beat she quips, I know you are, but what am I? Toji chuckles in response, cries they're entirely too alike, which is good, he supposes, but she's also a literal child, so what does that say about his maturity level? Whatever. He never claimed to be a functioning adult anyway. Listen, Toji starts, you don't swing a knife or a sword or anything else for that matter with your arms. You swing it with your legs and with your wrists. In response, Maki pulls a face. What the heck? Oi, let me explain before you give me that look. Your lower body is way stronger than your upper body. I'm sure you've realized how much stronger kicks are than punches, right? Think of it this way. You would try to see clearly with the wrong pair of glasses, so why would you try to direct an attack with the weaker half of your body? It's all about momentum. You can put a lot more force into a punch if you can drive your whole weight behind it, and you can pivot on your ankles far quicker than you can swing your entire torso. He outstretches his arms, and your wrists allow for more precision in your movements, for a quicker reaction time than trying to move your elbow to parry a blow that'll come before you can even move your shoulder to face it. Toji taps his bicep for emphasis. Now, that doesn't mean you can skip arm day. You still need to have the strength to throw solid punches and hold back a weapon someone swings at your face, even if the right technique can get you there in time. To demonstrate, Toji bends smoothly into a ready stance, drawing a line with his finger from his shoulders, his hips, his knees, then to his ankles. You gotta always be thinking about your center of weight, he continues. That is where the core of your strength and stability comes from. It doesn't necessarily mean you gotta stay upright all along, but rather that your line of action is balanced between your upper and lower movements, such that if you were to freeze any position you were during in a fight, you'd be able to stay there all day without tripping over. Maki furrows her brows at him, but Toji can tell she's soaking it up like a sponge. That makes sense, she says slowly, almost as if she's surprised that something he said actually does. Yeah, of course it does. Fighting is a lot more about thinking than you might believe. That is practice, that is thinking about practice, then finally all that thinking and all that practice becomes instinct. She blinks back at him and nods, and he can't help but pull a self-satisfied smirk. Nailed it. Hey, maybe he has a shot at this whole dad advising thing. Now come on, show me your ready stance. So Maki does. It's not entirely bad, he supposes, to the untrained eye, but to him, it's kind of a train wreck. First off, her elbows are locked. Is she trying to get her arm snapped like a toothpick? Second, her ankles are both pointing in the same direction, which is just no. Zero range of motion or stability. Her shoulders are rigid like concrete. His big fat mouth and mess everything up. Before he can stop himself, he asks out of the blue, "Hey, do you remember me?" From when we met 3 days ago, she says, not peeling her eyes from her disjointed reflection in the fractures of a cracked mirror. Duh. No, you little pest, I'm talking about, you know. Toji swallows thickly. From when you were younger. Why would I? She replies. There's something almost sad about the way she says it. He supposed she just wouldn't remember him if he'd left her life when she was still a baby. But the answer still stings in a way he can't quite put into words. You're not even right about what you think I am. So I don't think you remember me either. Man, she won't even say it? Well, that really stings. It's not like he's expecting the child he left behind to leap into his open arms, but still. No, I do. He says hesitantly, as if it's a question. Then he conjures up the memory, the only one he has. He thinks of the rain on the window, the ambient sounds of the hospital. He thinks of cradling his precious baby in his arms, how that child was the most divine blessing of the heavens, and all their immortal glory could possibly weave together. Then he repeats with resolution, I do. Maki doesn't reply to that, but she scans his face like she's looking for something Toji's not sure if she finds. Let's just continue where we left off. Toji sighs, but he complies with the request. She gets the ready stance down surprisingly quick, so they move on to some of the basics. Proper form for powerful kicks and punches, how to shift your weight in an instant and keep your motions fluid, how to use your body language to deceptively lead your opponent right where you want them and into your next attack. It's far more information than she can process in a day, but she's eager, and Toji knows she can handle a bit of homework. She hangs on to his every word as if she truly believes that each one is important, which is equal parts wonderful and terrifying, because holy shit, his daughter is actually listening to him. But he's also talking out of his ass half the time. Finally, she wears him down and convinces him to quick spar, just so she can practice where she's learning against an actual person and not just her joined reflection. He lets her lead, lets her work what he responds to each of her attacks. Her movements steadily get sharper, more confident. He can almost see the gears churning behind her eyes as the two of them fight, analyzing even the tiniest of muscle movements so that no action is wasted and every motion is full of intent. She was able to mirror some of his actions he hadn't even put into words and make them her own. There's only way to put it. Only one way to put it. She's incredible. Pride swells in his chest because fuck, she's just like him. For the first time, he kinda doesn't hate himself. He tries to throw in a word of advice here and there, where it seems like she needs pushed in the right direction beyond just physical. He tries to remember some of the shit he said earlier, how he taught her that every line of action needed absolute stability. So she shouts, stop! Right when she's about to punch him, until she freezes. Maki's so close, she almost caught it. But Toji doesn't miss how her hip is just barely misaligned with her ankle from the way she's bending her knees. So before she's able to realize and correct herself, he tips her right over. She shows back to her feet, visibly annoyed, not at him, and more at herself. Again, she demands, and Toji grins like a coyote. You got it, kid. But Maki finally tires herself out. It's long past sundown, but the dim light of dusk has quite succumbed to the velvet blackness of nighttime. Toji offers to walk her home, but she insists against it. They agree to train together again in another 3 days, and it's a sweeter victory than any he's won in his life, and can't even remember most of it. He trudges back to his own apartment and flops onto his couch face first, without even bothering to take off his shoes. He's sore, stupidly sore, but not the type that tugs at his muscles. This one settles into his bones, digs deep into his marrow, courses through his blood. It's a good kind of sore. The one he recognizes because it's the type of pain it's always worst, right before it gets a whole lot stronger. One thing is for sure. Yeah, he wants a kid in his life. This kid specifically. He doesn't have a goddamn clue how to be a father, but this feeling is enough to eclipse each of his three previous certainties a dozen times over. Hey guys, I know this was shorter than the last vid, but I'm going to be honest, this chapter is ridiculously long, to a point that I can't finish it in a reasonable time. So, I'm going to split this chapter into probably two parts. This one is called... Let me look. This one is called Foundations. Phantom Guardian, Chapter 2, Foundations, by Missing N000. If you guys like the content, like, subscribe, share with your friends. It helps with the algorithm. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.